Now?
Yeah, Mike, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
And I can hear you, and I can hear you, Renee. Thank you.
Okay, so you're not getting any echo on your side.
No.
No, okay. Well, let's go ahead then. It's I'll try to work through the echo on my side.
Okay, we're live.
Okay.
All right, so Michael, I was just going through your biography, and the last thing I mentioned is your current book manuscript that you're working on entitled Kwame Nkrumah and the Global Black Power Movement. Mike, this is your first time on Real Talk, so let me welcome you and say that we try and keep things informal. So it's generally first names and brother, sister, comrade, something like that.
Okay.
And I'd like to have a conversation rather than just Q&A. And you know who I am, so you know I interrupt. I try and seek clarification, try and debate a bit, all of that, right?
I think they call it groundings.
There you go. There you go. So I'm a devotee of William Cross, his Negrescence, Black Identity Formation, Negro to Black Conversion, psychological theory, how one becomes black, how we make ourselves black, right? So I always begin with some biographical questions, and I'm looking for what the psychologists call critical incidents that your interpretation of leads you to a certain politic, a certain ideology. So could you excavate for us your social political background? I know you moved to Chicago at the age of 14, so that's central to who you are. Can you talk about where you were prior, but put the greater emphasis on the experiences during your formative years? So what I really want you to hone in on is during the period that you were coming of age, what's going on? How does your the place where you are, the time period, what's happening nationally, locally, globally, how does that affect your political, social cycle development?
Right. Okay. So the first political event, the first radical political event that I have memory of happened in 1968. I was 10 years old. This was in Kingston, Jamaica. I was born in Clarendon, which is one of the outer parishes in Jamaica. It's what they call one of the breadbasket parishes of the island. And it's in the area where a lot of the great sprinters are produced. Now, I didn't get those sprinters.
Do not be modest, my brother. Do not be modest here. You got some tremendous contributions now. Come on.
So I do a little long distance running, but no sprinting. Anyhow, I went down. I was sent down to Kingston, which is the southwest of where I was born in Clarendon, because I had asthma as a youngster, and they said that the climate there was better for me. So I was sent to live with my aunt, who was working class. Her husband was a housewife, and her husband was a port worker. Also Gaviot. And a union man.
In the U.S., that might have been a contradiction.
No contradiction there. My own immediate family was a bit more petit bourgeois than that. In that my father had a wholesale business. We had some trucks and jeeps and would supply foodstuffs and such to small shops out in the outlying hamlets. In Jamaica, that commercial sector is dominated by historically by Chinese, Jews, and Arabs. But some folks like my father try to carve out a niche, within the hierarchy below the Chinese, Jews, and Arabs. So that's what they were doing. Anyhow, 1968. That was the year, October 1968. Walter Rodney, that's a name that's obviously very familiar to you. He was expelled from Jamaica in 1968 on account of his Black Power activities on the island. And his expulsion became the proximate cause for a social uprising on the island. It was the most important social rising on the island since the labor movements of the 1930s. Jamaica at this point had only been independent for about 60 years.
Excuse me, Michael. These are the incidents that lead to Rodney later writing the book "Grounding with My Brothers."
That is exactly so. That book, Grounding with My Brothers, contained several of the Rodney's Black Power speeches he gave. He gave in Jamaica. And of course, he was very much engaged with the Rastafarians. And on that basis, he was teaching at the University of the West Indies. And was expelled as an undesirable alien. He was Ghanaian. From there he went to Tanzania, where of course he wrote his great book, How Europe Undeveloped Africa. And there's a sense in which, had he not been expelled from Jamaica, it's unlikely that book would have been written.
That's right. That's right.
Because that book could only have been written, the place where it was written, and the time.
But you know what? Not only that book, but the whole Tanzania school of Africanists may not have existed at that moment, right?
Yes, indeed. Right. So anyway, it was the Rodney Rising that I would call as my first radical political event. And one thing I recall very distinctly from that period is helping my older sister to wash out the straightening in her hair. They had straightening combs those days. And so it was said that the folks involved in what became known as the so-called Rodney Riot, that's the derisive term that the Jamaican government gave to it. It was really a social uprising. Anyhow, some of the elements in that rising, it was said did not take kindly to what they call fried here. And so I helped my sister to wash out the frying out of here. So
the people call them perms, but Kwame Ture would refer to them as temporaries. It's a temp. The natural hair gonna revolt. So that's the first political event, but
radical political event.
Radical political event. So after you go to Chicago, how do you get from the 14-year-old young teenager to Dr. Michael Rest, radical Pan-African internationalist?
How much time do you have, brother?
I can give you 5 minutes to answer this question.
Okay. Yeah. So I arrived in Chicago in May, I think it was 1972. Now, you of course one of our leading authorities on the Black Power movement, and you will recall that one of the events in the U.S. Black Power movement that happened just a few months earlier in March 1972. That was the Gary Convention. So I arrived in the US, hard on the heels of the area convention. I arrived at the airport in Chicago. And I saw some folks there, young white people wearing jeans and t-shirts. Some of them looked like they needed a bath. Because I had arrived, you see, as a 14-year-old with a suit and tie.
Yeah.
That's how you dressed up to go on planes in those days. You may recall. My brother and I. So these hippies were out there protesting. And in retrospect, I think they were protesting the Vietnam War. Because there was an election also in the US in 1972, of course. I think Nixon was running for re-election. That's when he put in his so-called Southern strategy, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
I came in the midst of all of that. The campaign against the Vietnam War was in full swing. Nixon is running for re-election. The Gary Convention, which, as you well know, is an attempt to bring various factions within the Black movement. As at this point, I think you would agree that Black Power in the US has probably passed to speak. So that's the broad backdrop for my entrance into the United States.
Okay, so let's move on.
Now, if you want me to talk a little bit about my larger political education,
yes.
As a youngster in Chicago, then
please do.
I
Yes,
can do so.
because Chicago's a nationalist town, but it also has a radical tradition amongst Black folk.
Absolutely. So I went to Austin High School on the west side of Chicago.
Okay, you're in the Austin area.
Austin area, absolutely. That's where I was on the south side. I was with the working people on the west side.
Yeah.
In those days, if your daughter was dating someone from the west side, that would be a disgrace to the family.
Potential downward move.
Indeed. So I would say that had it not been for certain institutions in Chicago, my high school years would have been wasted. Because I didn't think there was much for me to learn, and I spent most of my high school hours, I would say, in the school library. I think I was the only one who was ejected from the library.
Okay, so you got to tell us, why did you get ejected from the library? Because I had an opposite experience. I negotiated not having to go to class to go to the library. The teacher didn't want me in class, and I didn't want to be there, so just go to the library, we give you a C. So how'd you get kicked out the library?
Because I wasn't as savvy as you. I didn't negotiate to stay in the library. Because you were supposed to only have 1 or 2 library hours. And I was there, spreading it into 3-4 hours. And so the librarian would come around and say, you've been here for a while, and they ask to see your schedule and so forth. And they said, "Well, how to class?" So that's how it came to be that I was kicked out of the library. In any case, there were certain institutions in Chicago. You mentioned that Chicago is a nationalist, and indeed it is. That I think were absolutely formative and vital to my political education. One was at People's College, the bookstore. Al Kalimat was one of those, and Von Bailey and Miriam. So that's one place where I spent a lot of time. You could go there and spend the day. Nobody would bother you. You could take books and just sit there on the couch and read. Another key institution formative to my political education. People's College was on the near west side, close to what was then called Circle Campus. Now I think they're now called University of Illinois Chicago. Then on the south side, there was a Third World bookstore. That was the Madhubuti operation. And I and that is the center, of course, of sort of kind of cultural nationalism, key center of cultural nationalism in Chicago. I spent a good deal of time there.
Michael, let's come back. So basically, you were spending time in People's College. I joined People's College about 1979. So you're spending time with the Black Marxists, and you're spending time with the cultural nationalists.
Yes, I am. I'm also spending time with the white Marxists up on the north side. They had a bookstore up there. I would go there as well. And then in Evanston, there was what was called a China bookshop. And they sold these very cheap editions of the writings of Chairman Mao and all the old Marxist classics. You could get them for 50 cents, right? Because it was all being subsidized by the Chinese government. And so between those four places, the China bookstore, the white Marxist operation on the north side of Chicago, People's Bookshop on the near west side, and Third World Books on the south. That's how I got my political education. I also spent a lot of time in the Black church, and that was key to sort of a kind of cultural grounding for me. That church was located on the west side of Chicago.
Which denomination?
It was a Pentecostal church. Pentecostal. So my parents belonged to the Pentecostal denomination. So that's where we went. And that's where the grounding was. Now, interestingly enough, this church had a very big contingent of folks from Alabama. Now, you know that Alabama is not a center for migrants from Chicago. It's not a center for migrants from Chicago.
And maybe Arkansas, but Mississippi for sure.
There was this large contingent of folks from Alabama there. They came from around Birmingham area. You expect to find them in Detroit or Cleveland or someplace like that. But and of course, there were there was a big contingent of folks from Mississippi as well. At that church. I think my family was the only folks who didn't have roots in the United States in that whole church. And so that was very important to my cultural grounding, and that's where I learned about the African American experience, the foodways, the culture, the speech, and so forth.
Can you speak to similarities in foodways and culture from your native Jamaica?
Well, there are certain crops that are kind of universal in terms of the Black experience in the diaspora. The sweet potato, for instance, the black-eyed pea or some version of it. The cooking techniques, of course, are different. Rice, like most of the Caribbean cultures, the Jamaicans eat a lot of root crops, yam, native to West Africa, and that's not part of the African American experience. But yeah, that's how that's my background, and that church piece was a key part of it. That's where I developed my love for gospel music, and then of course later on I started going to blues joints in Chicago. gospel along with blues and R&B as these are the three forms of music that I listen to the most to this very day.
That seems very common in that sense. Yeah. I find myself as I got older returning to the blues and particularly neo blues now, as opposed to R&B. So,
Muddy Waters and Johnny Hooker and those fellas.
yeah,
Memphis Minnie and such.
yeah, all of that, all of that. But now let's Gary Clark, Cody Chestnut, uh, that type of piece now.
Yeah. Well, I'm still partial to classics.
I still listen to the old folk. You got to maintain the tradition, no doubt about that. So now we got the foundation. Now I was gonna say you've got a kind of unique intellectual biography in that you have advanced academic training as a sociologist and as a historian. Now I'm guessing here because I know you've had appointments in sociology departments as well as history departments as well as African American studies and African studies. So I want to frame something, right? That I want to focus on the history piece, though. Clearly, the sociological background is important for your first book and for the way you look at the world, I would say. But the history piece I want to pick up in that a lot of African Americans during my generation, and I'm somewhere like 6 to 8 years ahead of you. So
you don't know the part, right? You don't know the part. They say black don't crack.
I appreciate it, brother. I'm trying to do everything I can to make sure that I don't be the one that let the family and the folk down. Okay, you got to try and maintain. Get your ass to the gym.
No evidence to let anybody down at this point.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. So we did African American, and then we did the minor field in Africa, and I suspect yours might have been reversed. That you did Africa as the major field and then African American. But the point is that you've developed a real fluency, right? I can think of Michael Gomez and a handful of other people that are actually fluent, right? There's a lot of people who talk about doing the diaspora, but they really do one place and try to make you believe they do a global Africa and their ass doing Black Canada. But you someone who really does have that fluency. So what I want to, just a minute, I got to get this phone to take me back to where we're at. So what I want to do is, can you first talk about methodological and theoretical insights that you would say you benefited from because of the multidisciplinarity, the sociology and history? And then second, can you talk about how your preparation as an Africanist allows you to see certain things in the African American experience and in ways that it enhanced your knowledge and your interpretation of the two experiences and, of course, the diaspora or global Africa?
Well, thank you for that question. And thank you, too, for mentioning Mike Gomez. Because you're absolutely right. He is the gold standard in terms of his ability to write and to teach and to organize intellectually around what you might loosely call the Black world or global Africa. He is the one who founded the organization ASWAD, which is our single most important organization in terms of trying to understand Black experiences in global perspective. Okay, yeah. So Gomez is our lodestar and our model, and I want to underline that point. So thanks for mentioning him. Now, my own in terms of my own experience, yes, I did. In terms of graduate training, Africa was my major field. And the Black experience outside of Africa, with an emphasis on the U.S. experience, was a secondary field. Though more and more over the years, the U.S. Black experience has come to the center of what I've tried to do, or close to the center anyhow. You know, you ask, you know, how you go about preparing for that kind of work. What I find is that the best way to prepare for it is simply to try to do it. The best preparation for, you know, this is not something that is taught, as far as I'm aware, in any systematic way, in any graduate program, or very few anyhow, in the United States. So you do it by trial and error. You prepare for it by doing it. Right? Best preparation for Black studies is to do Black studies. And that's the way it has always been historically, right? You go back to what the founders of this field in the United States say, in the 19th century, and you start with you know, folks like, say, David Walker, Martin Delaney, Alexander Crummell, Blyden, and so forth.
Right, Stewart.
You know, these are folks who are all historically grounded. They're not trained. You know, we don't get our trained historians until the Du Boises and the Woodsons come along. But they have a certain mastery of the method, right? And their understanding of the method really arises from the fact that whatever it is that they're doing, they put the Black experience at the center of it. And that's the key.
I'm glad you said that this approach, it precedes Du Bois, and it certainly precedes Molefi Asante. And this is a recovery project of the origin of us writing history.
Yes, that is the starting point, and that has always been the starting point of an oppressed people trying to gain an understanding of themselves. Walker talks about troubling the pages of history. That's how he put it. Trying to understand the condition that Black people is in. You know, right? His book is called Condition. Trying to understand the Black condition, and how do you do that? You do it by troubling, right? In Walker's language, troubling the pages of history. That's why historically the Black experience is so grounded in the study of the past, because that past has been used against us, you see. And so the challenge has always been to fashion a past that can be an ally, an enabler in the quest for liberation, because the oppressor has always denied that we have a past. You know, both before and after Haiti. I mean, as late as 1962, there was this famous British historian called Hugh Roper. And as late as 1962, he gave a series of lectures on BBC in Britain, in which he stated infamously that there were students, this is the era of African independence, of course, and there were students in British universities demanding to be taught African history. And he said, well, there's no such thing as African history. Perhaps in the future, he said, there will be an African history, but right now there's none. There's only the history of European activity in Africa. And he goes on, he said the West is darkness, and darkness is not subject history. So that is what we have been contending with. Are you still there, brother? I'm losing you. I just lost you from the screen, and you have returned, and you're muted. Okay,
yeah. Okay. When you said those last comments, the MAGA fascists, Reagan them, just issued a report attacking our history today, right? They issued their analysis of the Smithsonian and how it is Saving America's Story is the name of this report that just came out from the Reagan administration. And it basically argues that the Smithsonian museums, with particular interest on the African American museum, is not glorifying the right people.
Well, that is true. From this standpoint, yes. Yes, so history remains very much a potent weapon. Those of us, in Black studies, you and I have been on this battlefield for some time. Hopefully we have done something and made some small contribution to reproducing ourselves, so to speak, intellectually, and help to train up and mentor the next generation, which has to carry forward this battle. And we are in a very low and reactionary period right now. I don't think there's anything has been seen in this country in this regard in our lifetime. I don't think so. You've gone. You're muted again, brother.
Oh, it just said I was unmuted.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Now you're back. No, you're muted again.
Can you hear me now?
No. You're back.
Okay, good. You're absolutely right. This attack on our history is absolutely the worst. You probably would have to go back to the 30s and 40s to find something comparable. And you haven't said that. I want to raise this question with you. The last time I looked at the statistics of Black folks receiving PhDs in history in the U.S., the last data I looked at was 2020. And it was the nadir of a trend that went back to to '07. In '07, the largest percentage and number of black people received PhDs in history, and thus became 7% of all PhDs awarded in the field of history. Right? It then shrunk in 2020 to 3.5. Excuse me.
So that's the high point.
That's the damn high point. Yeah.
Okay.
By 2020, it had shrunk to 3.5%. But what we're talking about is that the number of PhDs in history awarded in the United States fell to something like 670, something like that. And the number of black PhDs awarded was 26. So my question, 26 black people in the entirety of the U.S. and its colonies. 26. Okay. And when I talk to other historians, they're talking about no black grad students in that class. What's the experience that you're having, that you're seeing at Penn State? And I don't mean the people who are in African American studies doing history or in African studies doing history, but admitted to the history department and will graduate with a degree. Have you seen this decline that I see in the data?
Yes, I would say so. So we have some in the pipeline. But I am not aware of very many new ones admitted. And there's a report circulating. It's been in the New York Times, I think, for several days now, saying that there's going to be a significant decrease in the number of students being accepted into PhD programs in the humanities and social sciences across the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I know very well who's going to bear much of the brunt of that.
That's right. Okay, Brother Lorick. Okay.
You're muted again, brother.
Okay. I guess everything. All right. So I'm back. So I guess I want to move to another kind of question, and it gets at what we've been talking about. And I was on Instagram yesterday, and I ran across this influencer, a young woman, and she boldly stated this claim: Black Americans are the only ethnic group in the U.S. whose entire history and culture was stolen from them. This destruction of African culture thesis leads directly to the notion of the black deficit thesis that E. Franklin Frazier articulated and that nearly every Negro integrationist took up, right? Mm-hmm. But I would contend, and pardon the pun, it is also foundational to the insanity articulated by the so-called Black Foundational Americans, the FBAs, right? If you had access to that Gen Z lay historian, any one of the proponents of the not out of Africa thesis, what would you say to him?
Not out of Africa. No, yeah. As it happens, I got this book on. You remember this book, I'm sure. What's the date of publication on it? 1996. 1996.
It's the high day of the response to Afrocentrism.
The high day of the response. It's in fact, the subtitle is, right? The title is not Out of Africa. The subtitle is How Afrocentricity Became an Excuse to Teach Myth as History. And it was entitled "Not Out of Africa." Yeah. So if if they're familiar with the genealogy of that formulation, they probably would discontinue the use of it. For starters, well, it is not a new cry. Of course, it's been around. It's been with us. And Malcolm faced it, and you will recall his response. To those who said that they hadn't left anything in Africa, he said, "You left your mind in Africa." That was Malcolm's response.
But I would say that response by Malcolm feeds the narrative that there's not a large body of cultural retentions.
Um,
Gomez, the Michael Gomez position, right? That in the furnace of enslavement, 300-400 different African ethnicities became one people with one culture in each place that we were transported to.
Yes.
And that much more cultural survival and retention than loss. The main thing we lost is sovereignty, right? And control of our labor power. But we retain much of the culture. I'm not saying there aren't some losses, but there's largely a creolization, a merging of hundreds of different cultures to find what allows us to adjust and survive.
Yes, it's a new African synthesis, right? New African, if you like. In the U.S., there's, you mentioned E. Franklin Frazier. He had that debate with Hershkovitz, you may recall. And interestingly, it was, Hershkovitz, right? It's white Jewish historian. Actually, he was an anthropologist by training.
The clock is right twice a day.
Who was, from our point of view, on the right side of the question, right? Yeah, but Africa is key to understanding the Black experiences on this side of the Atlantic. Has always been, and every generation has got to grapple with and answer that old question posed by County Cullen in his famous poem, you recall, Heritage. What is Africa to me? However you answer the question, it can't be, it can't be nothing, right? Because if only because the oppressors or the downpressors, as the Rastas like to say, are not going to let you get past it, right? You're going to be reminded on a daily basis that you are a son of Africa, but you're a descendant of Africa, and you don't belong, right? So we've had to fight for belonging wherever we have been in this hemisphere. Even in societies where Black, like the one I come from, historically, Jamaica, where Black people are the majority, you still have to fight, right, for belonging. And you are denied belonging precisely because of your origin in Africa. You see that, it's in your face every day. I mean, if you've been following some of these football or soccer games, So right now, just a few days ago, right, you had this senator in Paraguay. After they had been defeated by the French team, and um, you know, the response was, well, these are not French people. These are barbaric Africans. Right? And who don't even belong in France. And how dare they, right? How dare they whip the Paraguayan team and deny them an opportunity to participate further in the in the World Cup games. There are fans every day, who are throwing bananas at these black players, who are making monkey sounds, and who are taunting them, and players too, right? And players as well, taunting them on the field. So there is no getting around Africa, right? So you're going to have to deal with it. And however you decide, however you decide to engage it, there is no disengagement from it.
C.L.R. James said, you got to go through it.
You got to come by way of Africa. Exactly.
You got to go through it.
It may not be your destination, but it's a point of transit.
Absolutely. The other thing that James said that I find interesting in regard to the soccer comment you made about that senator from Paraguay, James argued that African and Arab and Asian immigration into Europe and America was the chickens coming home to roost. He didn't use those words. He said that this is where that European colonialism went out and conquered the world and stole all the resources. And at some point, those peoples came to Europe. That this was the logic of what they sold.
Indeed. As they, as the phrase goes, we're here because you were there.
That's
Right. And so that's why the French soccer team looks like an African soccer team, right?
But not just the French. All of the European, if you removed the Africans from the European teams, right? And one could say maybe not so much in soccer in the U.S., but basketball or the other international sports. If you take out the African element, I don't know that you could have an Olympics.
You could not. I mean, look at the Swiss team, right? Switzerland of all places.
Yeah.
25% of the Swiss team is black. Switzerland, right? Norway.
Yeah. At the top of the world. So yeah, it's clear that you have to engage it. So now I want to pick up something that I think is central to the work that you've done. And I think one of the more important pieces that you've written. So I got a dissertating student who's bright, diligent, works hard. I'm gonna give him a bit of a shout out, Bishop Lawton. Right?
Okay, all right.
The young bishop is taking up one of the threads of your work. So he's looking at the African American roots of African studies, and as you argue, you and William Martin, in a future with a past, resurrecting the study of Africa in the post-Africanist era. That argument that you make that before the Africanists, there were the African Americans, there were black folks in the diaspora who studied Africa, who did the first work in the reconstruction of African history, right? And so you conclude, you and Martin, that article on a very positive tone, that that we're beginning to see a greater interaction and in some ways engagement and incorporation of African American studies with with the diaspora, and that in some cases these intellectual traditions are coming directly into the administrative form of African American studies. So you suggest at the end of that article that this is a positive thing. We are now 20 years down the pipe.
Maybe
How
25.
we're talking
Maybe 25, I think.
25 years down.
25 probably.
We're 25 years down. Shit, we're almost 30. That was 97.
Oh yeah. We're up
Yeah,
by
we're
30
almost
years.
30 years
Oh,
down
30
the
years,
road
right.
now.
Oh God.
So we're a generation. We're a generation down the road. From your vantage point today, how has that gone?
Where has it gone? Well, it has been institutionalized in some ways, or attempts have been made to institutionalize it. For instance, in ASWAD.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a key organization, and we want to, give them a shout out and promote them. And this student you have, Brother Dawson, is that name? Bishop Dawson, you said?
Bishop
Yeah.
Lawton.
Lawson.
No, Lawton.
Lofton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lawton. Lawton.
Lawton. Okay. All right. Yeah. So he is. You want to make sure you get him in this organization as well, if he's not with it already.
He's been to ASWAD a number of times. Right now, he's working as the national coordinator for the Freedom Schools that we're creating in Asala.
Okay, all right, okay. So he's on the
Asala
battlefield already.
Also, always been open to telling the global story, right?
Yes,
but
indeed they have.
We need the specificity of ASWAD, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. No, Asala has always been Pan-African, if you like, in that sense.
That's right.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, if you were a scholar writing about Africa in the United States in 1920, or for that matter 1960, and you have an article to publish, the publication of choice,
that's right,
was going to be the Journal of Negro History, right? And it's and its successors. Now the Journal of African American History.
Absolutely. My question for you is really this, okay? Mm-hmm. Looking at strengths and weaknesses, as the intellectual, curricular, and the administrative project of bringing African studies, African diasporan studies, and African American studies into a kind of unity, have we accomplished more than we've lost?
Have we accomplished more than we lost?
Are we pulling it together? There's still huge chasms between the areas of study.
That's an issue that we're dealing with right now at Penn State University. In fact, where just last week, on the 1st of July, right, 2026, two programs were merged. The Department of African American History and the Program of African Studies were merged to form a single department called Africana Studies.
Okay.
Yeah, so
they had been merged previously, right? And then they
had been, and they were they had a divorce, but now they're getting back together.
Okay.
And we'll see how that's going to go. But these relationships have been difficult, as you know, and they continue to be a challenge. But I think I'm a big proponent of the global Africa studies approach. Now that doesn't mean flattening out, specific experiences.
Because you got to have history is about particularity.
Absolutely. So it is. So it's a dialectic that you have to try to maintain. On the one hand, specificity; on the other, universality.
But look, the Europeans have maintained history departments in the United States since the late 19th century, in which they did all of Europe, the U.S., the world that they colonized, and they've all done it under one department.
Yeah, exactly. It can be done on a single a single rubric.
So my question to you is this: was this an initiative that came from the faculty and the students, or was this some top-down mess out of from the administrative Negro class?
You mean here at Penn State?
Yeah.
No, it was definitely top down at Penn State. So my position was that the process is deep. The process, and process matters. The process is deeply flawed. So I agree with the principle. Right? I affirm the principle, but the process was deeply flawed, and I said that. Publicly. I think you know me well enough to know that if I got something to say, I say it.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so that's what we have now, and we have to try to make something of it. And I'm committed to playing my small part in trying to make this thing work. Because I think the principle is right, even if the means by which we got here was not what it ought to have been.
Okay.
Because that's the future. I think more and more Western societies like the United States are becoming microcosms of this larger black world.
That's right.
They're crowning Igbo kings in Houston, Texas. No, Igbos don't have any kings. Historically, of course, it's Igbos don't have kings. They are a kingless society.
Is the number something like 300,000 Nigerians in Houston?
I mean, that could be an undercount.
Nigerians outside of Nigeria.
Right. I know there's another issue you want to discuss in terms of this question about the distinction between politics and culture.
Yeah, I was getting ready to go there. Yeah,
between politics and culture. But yes, you will find probably a greater mixture of continental African peoples, right, in a place like Houston or New York or Chicago than you would find in probably any African city.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
One of the things that I argue is that those of us who were ripped from our homeland and redeposited throughout the diaspora, if you go through the DNA and the culture and even culture, you're going to find that we are Pan-African, right? We're not the product of one ethnicity. We're the product of tens and scores
Yeah, we are the original Pan-African.
ethnicities.
Yes, indeed,
Yeah.
indeed.
Absolutely. So let's go straight.
Pan-African is not Pan-Africanist, right?
That's right.
Pan-Africanist is a political choice.
That's right. That's a political choice. But the background is definitely, as one says, out of many. So my question, the book that I'm finishing up is entitled Our History is Like Our Hair, Nappy. And one portion of it, I'm looking at the massive immigration into the U.S. of Afro-Caribbeans and Africans, such that in 1960 in the U.S., right, they're still using the categories white and non-white. 94% of the so-called non-whites are black folk, right? And 99% of all black folk are African American, meaning descendant of people enslaved in the U.S. By the time we get to 2000, right, 2005, 10% of the U.S. black population are immigrants from Caribbean and the continent of Africa. And we're talking about the people who are directly foreign born. We're not talking about their children. If we talk about the children, then we're now talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 19%. So this
One out of every five.
huh?
1 out of every 5.
Yeah.
1 out of every 5.
Yes, 1 out of every 5.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it. That's right. 1 out of every 5. So it has been a significant demographic transformation, right? And we can see it culturally in its positive forms, right? We can see it in the dances. We can see it in cuisine. We see that recreolization that occurred during the furnace of enslavement is occurring again. But on the political side, is not as happy a story. On the political side, we're seeing greater fragmentation. And I would argue that it's not the quote unquote foreignness, it's class. That many of the people who get to come into the U.S. represent the middle class. They are the people that you wrote about in Zimbabwe. It is probably their children who came to the U.S., that class, and that brings a different class dynamic. There are cultural differences, of course, and there's always with an immigrant, you don't go to some place cynically. You go with hopes and aspirations. And so the question is, I think that fragmentation that we saw in the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s, that the MAGA fascism is pressing a consolidation that is ending, that is beginning to wipe away that fragmentation. And I point to things like, Haitian immigrants, African immigrants who the police have killed, and that those families get together with other African Americans who have suffered that fate. And so we're beginning to see a restitching that is transcending what I think are generally class differences, though there is a cultural component to it. What do you think?
I think you hit upon an important point in terms of the class question. It is the case that they used to, I don't know if they use this language anymore. They used to talk about brain drain.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So it is the it's the it's the brain drain out of Africa. These were are the middle class people. So I mean, some of the best scientists and medical folks and so forth in places like Houston and Nigerians.
Oh yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
I mean, if you want,
Brother, here in Champaign-Urbana,
in Champaign
one
Urbana.
time
Okay, there you
my
go.
eye doctor was Nigerian. My personal physician is Nigerian. My my asthma person at the hospital was Nigerian. Yeah,
In Champaign Urbana, right?
Champaign-Urbana.
And in nowhere America.
Brother, in the downtown area, we of course we got the soul food restaurant, Neal Street Blues. But you walk a block and turn the corner, we got an Ethiopian restaurant, and then you walk two more places, you got an Afro Caribbean restaurant, all in downtown.
in Champaign Urbana. We're not talking about Chicago.
We're not talking about Chicago.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So there is that. There's that factor. Though more and more you get the kind of working class elements. If you look at the those folks hawking on the street of New York, many of them are Senegalese, for instance, right?
Right.
They're not the Haitians and the and the Somalis and so forth working in these meat house packing places and these poultry packing operations. They're Amazon,
Amazon, Fed Express. Right. Champagne, we got a factory, Flexingate, owned by the billionaire fascist that owns the Miami team, football team. This cat has a factory, and when they went on strike, man, every third person was Congolese.
Congolese, right? Congolese. There you go.
So the Congolese here are working class people. The Nigerians are middle class people. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So, but certainly the middle class and the upper middle class immigrants, they were in the vanguard of it.
Yes.
Right. So the working people, if we want to call them that, or the working class, are later.
They're not in the 80s. They're not in the 80s wave. They're in the new millennium wave.
Exactly. Exactly. And it remains to be seen what kind of relationship that these folks are developing with fellow African American workers, and so forth. Of course, there's going to be these cultural silos, and in many instances, there some of these cultural groups are organized not in terms of nationality, but in terms of ethnicity. Right.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. We're dealing with a wide range of factors and dynamics here. But the glue to all of that, you put your finger on it just then. The glue to all of that is oppression. Right. So the police is not going to ask whether you came from Kinshasa or Kansas or Kansas City. Right.
And if they did, they don't give a damn.
And if they did, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that this external pressure, this external oppression, has historically been a key factor in in gluing and melding, black, black solidarity.
We've got to build it. So,
But then it has to be built. It has to be built consciously, and that's hard work.
yes, it is.
And we need serious organizers. It can't be done by NGOs.
No.
It can't be done by NGOs. It has to be done by political organizers, by union folks. And I'm glad you mentioned the labor issue in some of the material you sent me. In the academy, we hardly have anybody anymore working on Black working class history.
Man, you just hit it on the head. My former student Gus Wood, who just came out with a wonderful book, entitled, I think it's about Black working class struggles. It's Class Struggle in Atlanta. It's the
In
title.
Atlanta.
Yeah. So Gus is a labor historian, and he says it's a handful. We got Joe Trotter at the apex, and then we got,
but I mean, Joe is our age, maybe older.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah.
I think Joe's ahead of us, man. I think Joe got his PhD in the early '80s, because that first book comes out in '85. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So and Joe has trained, of course, a lot of folks, and he's still productive, as you know.
Absolutely. The clock is.
But we need more Joes.
Yeah, we do. And the truth is, within that general decline of Black historians, Black sociologists, Black anthropologists, right? That labor element was never broad. It has shrunk tremendously.
Yeah.
According to Gus Wood.
But it had some currency in the 80s and 90s even, but less so. I haven't come across in the last 20 years. I probably a student, Black or non-Black, working on Black labor.
Well, that's
Have you?
That's okay. Then I'm gonna have to consider myself fortunate, because Gus finished with me probably 6 years ago.
Oh, okay, yeah. Indeed. Well, I mean, but they came to you because you are, of course. I mean, that's what you do, right? You're a labor historian by training.
Yeah, but no, it's going to be scary for those of us like you and I who understand that this whole thing turns on the demand for Black labor, and we go nowhere until workers take the lead. But I want to switch and go to a broader Pan-Africanist question, and that's that the UN quite recently. So how significant do you think the UN's declaration in Walter Rodney's terms that the European slave trade and enslavement is the gravest crime against humanity? How significant is that?
That's world shattering. That's world shattering. That's an absolute. That's a paradigm shift. So here's the language. I've got it here, brother.
Okay.
It says, recalling that the large-scale trafficking of enslaved Africans marked a profound rupture in human history. Let me say that again. A profound rupture in human history. I don't think we've seen that language anywhere before.
No.
A profound rupture in human history, right? This scared the daylights out of them. So every single country in the European Union abstained, which is a nice way of saying no. Right?
That's right. Abstentions are a negative vote.
Yeah. Was it U.S., Argentina, and Israel? I think that was those three. They just say no outright.
They're putting on their clan role more openly.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody else, including China and Russia, by the way, right?
Voted for it.
Said yes. The
152 nations said yes.
How many?
Oh, wait a minute. Did I say 152? No. 128 said
128.
yes.
Okay. 128. Yeah, but
52 abstained.
Yeah, but for the UN to say this, and then the statement goes on. They use this Latin word, juscogens. In other words, it is universally binding. And so whether you vote yes or no, right, just in terms of international legality, it is you are legally on the hook. Now, we have no means, of course, of enforcing that.
Until there's power, we can't enforce it.
Right. We have no means of enforcing that. But what it does is to arm us with a kind of moral authority that we haven't had before.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to make it real. Okay, I've got one final question for you, and this builds from the new book that you're working on, right? And so I want you to describe and discuss, if you will be so kind, the new book project, Kwame Nkrumah and the Global Black Power Movement. So before you give us that description, I want you to clarify some terms and concepts. That I've argued that the long movement interpretation of the Black Liberation Movement.
Yeah, that's a classic piece you did there.
Yeah, I call it a vampire. Right? So when you say the long 60s, this is what I'm hearing or interpreting that the way I use the 60s, I always put behind it a parenthesis that says 1955 to 1978. That's what I consider the long 60s because it captures the origin of the civil rights movement and it ends with the destruction of Black power. When you say the long 1960s, or is it what do you say, the long Black power?
Whatever language I use, maybe long 1960s.
The long 1960s.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
In temporal terms, you ask. It's a temporal question you're asking, right?
Temporally and conceptually.
All right. Okay. I would tend to start there in 1957. I mean, particularly because I'm not just because I'm working on Nkrumah. 1957. 1957, of course, is the year of Ghana's independence.
Right.
But a lot of events. Wasn't it 1957 that they formed the Southern Christian Leadership Conference?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's 1957 too.
Yeah. So I start with the Montgomery bus boycott.
I see. Okay. All right.
But it parallels Nkrumah's positive action campaign.
Absolutely. And of course, it's there's Sam Cooke, right? Chicago man, right? Sam Cooke.
Absolutely.
We went from gospel to R&B. It was in 1957 that he had his breakout song, "Darling, You Sent Me." Remember that song?
Yeah. Send me.
That was his crossover song.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It
So
absolutely was.
so it was also in 1957 that they conceived this thing they call the West Indies Federation, which grouped the Anglophone islands in the Caribbean.
Just the Anglo.
Just the Anglophone islands, right?
Okay.
And the British. It was a British colonial thing. Of course, then they went their separate ways and got independence separately. They messed up the whole thing. The only thing that survived this the federation was two things. One was the University of West Indies,
Right.
and the other was the West Indies cricket team.
Ah, no. See, Laura writes brilliantly in that cricket team.
Yeah. Okay. So because of all those reasons, I'm partial to 1957 as a starting point.
I get you.
But the key one was Ghana's independence, which became a bellwether for for the diaspora and so forth. I mean, you will recall that Martin Luther King was among the big African delegation that went down there when he came back. He gave that speech, which his intellectual executor has categorized as one of his key speeches, or whatever language they use.
Now that you say that, in 57, King writes an article, and I think it appears in the Journal of Negro Education, where he's talking about the global event. So when people say that it's only when he turns against Vietnam that he develops an internationalist vision, he's articulating this internationalist vision in 57.
Yes, indeed.
It hits me right now.
Yes, indeed. He's got this. He after he comes back from Ghana, and he preaches a sermon. I think it's called "Birth of a New Nation." And the title is important. It's interesting.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. The title's pregnant. Yes.
Right. So I mean, that's my starting point. 57, especially with Nkrumah. Because in 57, Nkrumah is the best known black person in the world. Right? I mean, they write songs about him, proto reggae songs, calypso songs, sermons are preached about him, poetry is written about him, etc., etc. He's on top of the world.
Right.
1957. Of course, they overthrew him in 1966. It's one of the first of the neo-colonial coups.
Right.
And they overthrew him for a number of reasons. One, was the Congo question because of his support for Lumumba. And then the icing on the cake was that book he wrote called Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism.
Yes. They say the stock market took a dip when that book came out.
So they got rid of him. So the Nkrumah of state power is no more. But he doesn't disappear. He reappears as a black power figure. So he writes essays on
Spectre of Black Power.
The Spectre of Black Power. That's right. That's one of his that's one of his famous Black Power essays. Right? He writes the Spectre of Black Power, and his books are read in the movement. I mean, it's on the syllabus. Neocolonialism is on the syllabus. That book he had on guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
Revolutionary warfare. That's on the syllabus.
Look, Africa Must Unite.
Africa Must Unite is on the syllabus.
Yes. I've taught all of that.
Yeah.
In my African history class. Absolutely.
So he gets exiled in Guinea, and you got all these people visiting him at his at his villa on the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah. And folks coming from the US, from England, from other parts of the continent of Africa, they all flock into Conakry to confer with Nkrumah. And these are all Black Power folks. So this is the story. This is the Nkrumah story that I'm trying to write. So the Nkrumah of state power is well known. So after he's overthrown, a whole lot of people, wrote books and articles. Numbers of them actually have the title "The Rise and Fall of Kwame Nkrumah." But what is less well known is that having fallen, he rose again. This time in the firmament of Black Power.
Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael becomes Kwame Ture.
So Carmichael becomes
as the mentee of Nkrumah and
Secretary. Absolutely. So, but so Stokely may have been his best known disciple, which is not to say his best loved disciple, by the way.
You want to refer back to the days.
Right, but he's got you got all kind of folks.
Yeah, it's a struggle.
So that's the Nkrumah that I'm engaged with right now as a research project.
And the internationalist aspects of it is not just Nkrumah and his vision, but do you look at other places in terms of how they're responding to Nkrumahism?
Yes, in the context of Black Power. One interesting figure I'm writing about is someone called Obi Egbuna, who is one of the foundational figure in the Black Power movement in Britain.
Okay.
He was also a partisan of Biafra. And in fact, there's a story if you ever get a student one of these days, I hope you can put them on to this project. There's a story to be written on the interconnection between Biafra and Black Power. That's right. Biafra and Black Power. That is a missing link in the global story of Black Power.
Okay.
That Biafra project tried very hard to engage with Black Power, and with some success across the globe, but perhaps most importantly here in the United States of America.
Well, now that you mentioned that, I was at Tougaloo College in Mississippi in those days, and we had a number of students who had fought in the Biafran War. And some of them joined the RNA.
Okay, well, there you have it. Yes, indeed. Yes, there you have it. So the Biafra project, and this guy Buna, so he was an Igbo guy, and by the way, he spent time in the U.S. He was with the SNCC folks in Atlanta, and also with some of the Panther people. Also, actually, he had to spend a day with Elijah Muhammad and had dinner with him and so forth.
That's interesting. This is a side note, and I'm hesitant to say it, but sometimes you just got to say stuff. So, are you aware of the discussion between Huey P. Newton and Louis Farrakhan? So they meet, and Huey is eating a pork sandwich, and Farrakhan says, "Brother, you are what you eat." And Huey says, "Do you eat men?" Farrakhan says, "I get your point."
All right.
I'm probably wrong to bring it up, but it's a hilarious story that points to the sharpness of UEP Newton.
Yeah. No. He was a sharp guy, man. He was a sharp guy. It's just unfortunate that he got into that this drugs and so forth. Right. Yeah. So
So when will we see this work? When can I order it?
That's what I'm trying to figure. That's the same question I have, brother. Um,
We're in the
uh,
same state with our projects.
yeah. So I mean, I've
We're
got
at the end, but it's not done.
yeah, exactly. I've got a chapter on the Bogses,
Ah,
and the Bogses and Nkrumah. They were big promoters of Nkrumah too. In fact, according to the to her, Nkrumah proposed marriage to her. She said Nkrumah had proposed marriage to her, but then
back in
she
the 30s.
no, this would have been in the 50s, I think.
In the 50s.
Yeah, but then she married James instead.
Yeah. Okay, so this is after Nkrumah left the country.
Yes, yeah. This is
Oh, wow,
this is after this is this is what while he is contending for state power. He's an anti-colonial activist in that period.
Okay, well, one of my good buddies is Scott Kurashige, who co-wrote the biography of Grace, and I got him coming on next. So I'm gonna have to ask Scott if he knows anything about Nkrumah, Grace claiming Nkrumah proposed to her. I'd love to
Um,
hear that
um,
answer.
yeah. Well, no, please do. And here's and you've taken me way past my bedtime of
Yeah, and yeah,
9 o'clock on the
got
East
it
Coast.
out. We read
But here's another interesting person. You probably know somebody called Christine Claiborne Johnson.
Yeah, yeah,
She's a Chicago personality.
yeah.
She was with the nationalists and with the communists and everybody. And she was a big fan of Nkrumah. Made a number of I think they had some kind of romantic entanglement.
Mm.
From back in the 30s when Nkrumah was a student. She made a number of trips to Ghana when Nkrumah was in power, and also visited him a couple of times when he was in exile in Conakry, Guinea. She's a fascinating character in her own right. Who let's see, Eric McDuffie has a student, I think, who did a dissertation on her.
Really?
Right. But anyway, my interest in her is more narrow, looking at her engagement and her relationship politically with Nkrumah. Yeah, so she's got a piece on my is a chapter on her in my text.
Okay, that's right. So look, before we go through, there's only one question. So, do you have a summatory statement or any announcements you want to make before I ask you the one question that's in the chat, and then we can shut this thing down because we went longer than we normally do.
Right. Well, I want to thank you. In summary, I want to thank you for the invitation to come on this program and for the privilege of this conversation, brother. Thank you.
Well, thank you, brother, for coming. I've always admired your work and the fact that you represent your work. We got a lot of people who write radical stuff, but they're not radical.
Thank you.
We just leave it at that. So I've always admired that about you. So here's the question. The international vision has always been the mandate. Everything. Ooh, no, I don't want to ask that. That's nutty. Jackie Robinson retired from baseball on January 5th, 1957, too. The league still had segregated rosters in July 1959. Okay, this is just a thank you. There technically isn't a question unless you want to dive into some Hebrew Israelite bloodline Rise. I'm
Well,
gonna take that as a no, brother.
well, you know, there's Rabbi Arnold Ford. Remember him? Rabbi Arnold Ford. He was the
Yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah,
the Gaviite figure.
yeah.
Is
Yeah.
he came from Barbados, by the way, and then went to live in Ethiopia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the rise of the Black Messiah. I'm gonna leave that for a moment. He is
Yeah.
worthy of a study.
Well, that's Cleves right there.
Yeah, yeah, that's Cleve. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Jaramogi, what was James? Jaramogi,
Yeah, Agiman. Yeah, right. Agiman.
Black
That's
Messiah, Black Christian nationalism for sure. Um, my brother, thank you so much. Uh, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I think once we get that resolved, things went great.
they were, brother. It's that's why we got to keep the Gen Zs around because you know they can solve some challenges for us from time to time, especially technological ones.
Absolutely. The young man that came on that solved the problem, the sister too, Renee Johnston, and the young man Josh Ingram. These are stalwart members of Black Liberation Media.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so you're you know, bring them the way, bring them up the way they should go, and you know, when they're old, they won't depart. That's biblical, by the way.
There you go. I saw the way you moved that right back to a Rastafarian thing. My brother.
All right.
Peace out.
Okay, bro. All right. Take care. Good night. So,